Happy Wednesday night to you. It is the We Outside, where the We stands for World Epidemic. And it is outside where every week, multiple times throughout the week, we bring creatives, visionaries, and artists on the show to talk about, well, we really don't know. It's an unscripted show, but we're definitely going to take you on a journey. We're going to take you on some stories. We're going to dive into some history of some music and some music in general and a whole lot of other things. As always, we got a special guest for you. Today, we are privileged to have ATrophy with us as a special guest, hip hop rap artist, visionary. This dude's a visionary. I got to discover him a couple months back, and man, talk about somebody who's been through some things and continues to redeem themselves, and just from the couple months that I've known of you and been communicating with you and just DMing here and there, bro. You're taking one step at a time, and I'm excited to learn more about that as well. But with that said, ladies and gentlemen, visionary, creative, and artist ATrophy, man, go ahead and introduce yourself to everybody outside, bro.
Oh man, you had a great intro right there, man. I can't compete with that. But I am Atrophy. My real name's Brett. I don't mind being called either or. Um, and I just believe in trying to be a good person, man. My lifelong work now is being a better father. So and I appreciate you guys for having me here, man. I'm really excited to get into touching on some things that I think that should be properly addressed. You know,
No,
so
I can appreciate that, and we thank you for your time, bro. For
I
real, because
appreciate you.
these are conversations where they're real human conversations, where we're just gonna let this conversation take itself where it goes, right? So we appreciate your trust in having that conversation with us. I know Dooney's gonna try to pop on here when he gets done with work here in a minute, but we appreciate the trust, man, because especially in a world that's filled with a lot of different things, man. It's hard to trust people to have some conversations sometimes. So we are privileged, we are honored, and we thank you for that, bro. So we're definitely getting into it. One thing I'm definitely curious about. We always like to get to know the human behind, the art and the music. So I'm just curious, and just kind of we'll start it off with where did the journey of music for you begin, in the sense where you're like, man, I'm really digging this music shit. I got some love for it. Maybe I got some passion for it, and this is something I want to do, bro. Like when, and what was that like for you?
Realistically, I remember it like to the day where I crawl under my dad's bed, and there's like a bunch of stuff under there that I shouldn't probably be seeing. So it's the same day that I discover adult magazines and Megadeth
Okay.
and and Iron Maiden. So they're VHS tapes that I see, and it's Countdown to Extinction and Foreclosure of a Dream. Now I'm like 4 years old, 5 years old, and I remembered that I was kind of like passed around a lot, so I clung to a lot of the things that my dad liked. So like music was like, oh man, I didn't get to see this side of, showmanship or creativity. So when I seen the horror aspects of everything that I was told to be scared and frightful of, I'm seeing the kid sit on a throne of all of those things, and I'm like, he looks pretty calm to me, so is that normal? So that's where I really set in there, was like, man, can I do that with music? If I think it really evolved from there, because I took off from there with Motley Crue. So it just kept getting louder, larger, bigger, until I found myself like stuck there.
Man, I could appreciate that, and that was definitely a time where I really started to discover some music, and a lot of those bands that you just mentioned. Shout out to my boy Corey Brown. I still know this dude from the time that you were referencing those bands, and when you kind of started to learn those individuals. For me, it was like late '80s, early '90s,
Hmm.
um, and I discovered a lot of them. Gwar as well. I
Dude,
learned,
David Brocky,
man,
man,
right.
RIP, man. Yeah.
So I definitely have a dope appreciation for what you mentioned there, right?
Oh yeah.
Is that kind of, was that like catalyst where you're like, hey man, that I think just getting to experience this shit now, and really getting an understanding of it.
Yeah,
I can go do this. I am gonna go do this. Is that where the catalyst was, or did that kind of come a
I
little down
think
the
that
road for
that
you?
perpetuated the I think the curiosity for it because this was a music video VHS, so a lot of times in the 80s and 90s from when this was happening, Dave Mustaine was very big on peace sales, political views, and a personal vendetta with David, with James Hetfield. I mean, Cliff Burton dying and all those things. Like I was unaware of what that was at that age. So I'm just seeing the music video material and hearing these tones, and I'm like, wow, this is catchy. Now I lay me down to sleep. You're hearing something as a kid, right? And it's being, that's in a storybook. So I thought that the fact that this could be associated from a children's lullaby with, this grotesque or obscene material was like interesting to me. So I was left a lot with TV and McDonald's Happy Meals and crap and a bunch of, abuse. So that was a big escape for me. So it wasn't until probably like realistically maybe Wayne's World, you know,
Yes, bro.
be,
Yes.
because when it really, that was more, I think even now it's even more realistically, yeah, more of a realistic view on how these big events should happen, and how they can happen. It takes one person to believe in those things. So seeing those guys be total nerds and geeks with one dream, sharing what we're doing right now. I took a little time to put some little lights and stuff like that and get like, all right, cool.
I'm digging
But
the vibe, bro. I'm digging
you,
the vibe.
but realistically, I was like, man, so I'm past the 4, 5, 6, 7 years old, and I've went through some traumatic things, and I'm like kind of beckoning for this, man, what can I find? Drums or anything. Seeing Garth just go in and believe that if you book it, they'll come. I was like, is that really all you have to do? Is that it? Alice Cooper pops in. I just felt like whatever I'm wanting to choose to feed my Frankenstein, I want to be able to have more control over the parts that's being in it, man. I struggled for a long time trying to be something that, you know, um, I shouldn't have been. That finally, when I became that, dude, I had to realistically almost just kill it. I used to go by Dirt Nap. You know what I mean? So like Dirt Nap kind of like embodied me. I took it to an extreme. I was being Paul Bearer on stage, in caskets and having this ego that yeah. So you
Damn.
really yeah experiencing like 'cause that from Undertaker at WWE,
Oh
those
yeah,
things.
man.
Everybody,
Going Mark Calloway, bro. Like
yeah.
yes,
So
heavy influence
everybody,
on me a kid growing up. I was huge into
dude,
WWE,
still
WWF.
am.
Back in the day.
Yeah, still am. Before we, get the F out of here, and seeing a lot of these things, like it's sad that I see what Instagram really is. You know what I'm saying? And it's not Instagram is a platform for you, okay?
Yes.
And realistically, a lot of the stuff that gets perpetuated um, it isn't really touched on. I feel like in a realistic way because there's a lot of those superstars that never get that story told or never get that recognition until there's a massive heart attack or an essay report, you know, um, or a conspiracy theory, later on.
Something
So
that's like worth talking about, right? Instead of the art, even, which is wild, to think about. And
yeah,
I'm sure you experienced it, and you even kind of said so in the respect that you spent so long being, someone that you really weren't. How did that affect your art? Kind of
oh,
going
dude.
going through that journey, bro.
With me being passed around, man, my best friend was my grandma. So she didn't have a license. I'll tell you this is important because when I lost that person to me, it was after a field trip. So I got off of the bus, and this person that provided this comfort and a safe place for me being me. I was very artistic. I liked drawing. That's why I tattoo. Being trusted with your art on somebody. Their health that means more to me. I have Hep C. You know what I'm saying?
Yep.
So I disclosed that, and I still, you know what I mean? Like I still tattoo. I do my thing. And I was always drawn, so I found this, this the same value that my dad had, and I would be in the same tattoo shops, and I would draw tattoo flash. And I think when I lost my grandmother and I wasn't able to go to a basketball game, that I won tickets for drawing. This logo is for Wake Forest. The
Oh man,
Demon, yeah, yeah, for the Demon Deacons. My
and they
grandma
were
had passed
good
away
during that
too.
time too.
Yeah, dude, and so that happened. And I even learned how to wash stamps. I washed stamps off of my grandma's mail to send in artwork to Joe Quesada. He was the editor in chief at Marvel Enterprises. So I was actually sending fan art to Marvel Enterprises as a kid in manila envelopes, washed stamps, and
Yeah, that's
actually
cool.
I got a response back. And they were holding my art, Stan Lee and Joe Quesada holding my artwork and I was like, oh man, I carried that to school with me for like a good year, in my book bag.
Why not,
And
dude? I would have done the same thing. That's
yeah,
cool, especially as a kid at
I
that
know.
age. That's cool.
Yeah. So, and when I went to J.C. Penney, that's where I was getting my school clothes. I actually pulled tobacco. You know what I'm saying? I actually bought my school clothes that I wanted. So if I wanted Jinkos with like chain wallets and shit on them, I had to do that. So, I actually worked for a lot of those things, man. And I remember going there and it was a holographic green Spider-Man, Amazing Spider-Man t-shirt combo, and it had my fan art in the back of it. And I was like, yeah, man, and see, but you see when those things that you cling on to as a kid are big, that's immaculate, and people don't believe you. But then when you have your name there and it's accredited, it's awesome. But when you're getting picked on or certain things like that, and then you lose your best friend, your grandma, that motivation and that inspiration, it dwindles, and it's you lose that attachment to yourself. I think more so for me, you know,
I
and,
think
yeah,
there's a lot of value to that statement that you said there because I've always been a proponent that every relationship with someone that you have, no matter the type of relationship, whether it's a spouse, it's a coworker, it's grandma. I was very close to my nana, as well. I mean, she lived in my household until she broke her hip when I was like 16 years old. So I was super close. So I can appreciate that aspect of it too, right? But I think it's important to know that each relationship has to have its own type of value, right? There's a
right.
give and take with everything, and it's dope that you're able to have that. And especially as it influences your art overall and just who you are as a person, because at the end of the day, our relationships with people are our relationships
Hmm.
with people at the end of the day, right?
Yeah, because you have to have a core value and a moral compass. Even if you're doing wrong, there's still something there. Unless you're like clinically insane, there's still, there are key components to honestly just making right decisions. You know what I mean? And that's on any belief system, really. Um, that's why, like, even with gun safety, you know what I'm saying? I actually took hunter safety courses when I was younger. I actually had a respect for what we call a weapon, not necessarily a gun. I look at it as something that was, it was there for utilization for safety. It was there for, protection in the circumstance that you are in the right mind to determine those situations. Um, because I've seen good people have to use them, and I've seen people, get caught on the fences. But before a gun or a weapon, excuse me, or before a weapon is ever even introduced, if that family doesn't have stability within a household, um, with the temperament of children or young adults now, and the aggression because of the codependency on these,
Yep.
um, and the fixation on what numbers do and a fluctuation and trying to get you paid $15 for validation for a blue check. You remember when you had to earn it, and then when you got it, you had to pay.
It was something special when you actually
You
had
know.
it back in the day.
Um, yeah, and then meanwhile, I spent literally 5 years trying to find my son that I have full custody of now as a convicted felon. as somebody that I showed up with no lawyer. You know what I'm saying? I put the work in, and that's why like I want to focus on identifying some of the things that my son is doing, and I'm seeing the cycles, even though we haven't even, but we're total strangers to each other,
Hmm.
but not really. But learning these things is bringing a lot of light to a lot of the things that that I was going through, and kind of as I was addressing them, being sober. That was the key. Because when I was addressing it while using or drinking, it was like perpetuating, just feeding it. It was just feeding it and feeding it. I wasn't really getting a solution. Um,
And then
my
you took a stand, it sounds like. I
Yeah.
mean, again, to go through that process as well, bro, like without a lawyer, like I've seen
Oh,
those
dude.
things. Man, that's not easy, bro.
No,
That's not
and
easy.
we had to drive 5 hours to get there. She never showed up to neither of the mediations. The response was done like Chat GPT, and it was done with the wrong response, and it was hurried up and sloppy. Found out that he hadn't had his record, his shots. He was supposed to be in school. It was just people fighting over him all the time. He's got like scars and dent on his head here. He's scared of everything, and just shakes on certain things. Bathroom behaviors and stuff like that. He has no boundaries with people, man. So we're working with him. He's in kindergarten. He's doing good, man. He's got a brother here that loves him. I adopted him. That's my stepson. So I've had to actually stand twice in front of a judge, and one of those times I got to stand behind where the gavel is, bro, behind the podium, and to be on that side of it without handcuffs, bro. Like, man, I went from to from picking up syringes and banging
So right now
um
someone's literally giving you, I mean, your child
a
nonetheless, but
child.
the actual law is being like
Yes, yes, man,
that.
and
That's got to. I mean, not only are you talking about a complete 180 and a redemption as well, right? That's obvious, and we'll certainly dive into that. But what's it make you think when you talk about it? Because being a parent, it's not easy, bro. It's
no.
not easy, bro. And it's tough, right? Because growing up, we were always told, from society standpoint, you got to make sure your kid has it better for you, or maybe that familiar, or even you just had that belief, right? But
Yeah,
think I think people misconstrue what that means, right?
yeah.
It's not necessarily the sense of
What
more money or a bigger house or bigger that. It's to me anyways, being a
it's
parent now.
logic. It's logic, and what is conceptually safe for stability. Anybody can get into, because we've all done this, I think, from where I'm at. Anybody can slide into a house and get the rent for that first month, but can you
Yep,
maintain it? Can you maintain it? You know what I'm saying? So that's where a lot of those core values, that's the in your environment, where it was introduced to you during the early years, with the elasticity of the brain development and the elasticity of the perception of those problems that are constantly on the daily. You know,
true
eh,
story, bro.
we don't really realize, even if you're not laying hands on a child, if you're punishing and doing instant consequence for that moment or whatever, whether it's like roadblocks or doing this stuff or playing with your phone, you allowed access with the phone. If you're not taking proper steps to do what's necessary to teach, you have to teach. You know what I'm saying? So as frustrating as it can be, you know what I'm saying? This is that the child did not. If he could go to court and represent himself, he would win a case and be able to sue you for un for what is it? Non-consensual existence. How about that?
Man,
Because he
well,
didn't ask
well, it's
for
so
it.
crazy that you put it that way too, because it's so different than, and don't get me wrong, yes, I know there's evolution and things change, but how vastly different it is. Like it was funny. I watched oh God, what's that movie that I just watched with my wife? Idiocracy.
Idiocracy.
With God, Luke Wilson
Okay.
and you know what I'm talking about, right?
Yeah, pretty.
Like, bro, I
Yeah,
really feel like, where the dude gets frozen with the prostitute played
that's
by
right.
Maya
Yeah,
Rudolph, and then they end up like 500 years in the future.
yeah.
Like, I really feel like we're heading there, bro. Like, and I'm
Oh,
happy. I'm hoping, but I'm happy that it doesn't seem like I'm gonna be around for like that. But like,
uh,
and just from I think it's crazy, right? Because everything is a double-edged sword. When you look at the I don't even know if you want to call it the news cycle, the social media cycle, because that's what
yeah.
runs.
There's no news. There's none of that shit. You
You
tell
know,
me. You tell me an existing news channel that doesn't have a number in it. Just tell me one.
bro,
This
for real.
because most people are like, I don't even know what county I live in. I'm like, oh, okay, cool. Netflix doesn't stream channels for news, you
It's
know.
it's wild, but I think it's
Dude,
there's a lot of things wrong, right? The system foundationally is just broken, right, in this
yeah.
country. But two, then when you have other systems on top of it designed to divide and conquer or keep people down, or like it's hard, bro.
Oh, I know. I ended up living. Me and my wife were in San Francisco, and dude, you wouldn't believe the God, man, the language barrier on getting a license, and it was at San Francisco and Los Angeles, DMV. You would stand there for hours and then finally get to the desk, and then I would need a translator to tell the lady that was supposed to be helping me just get a replacement ID, and then I would have to wait 6 months. I would get on food stamps. It would get like never started, and I don't know how many times I would be out there hitting people with Narcan. Uh, Dude, I got dragged into a subpoena for a shooting that happened outside my hotel. I was in areas where it would give you a red light on the air quality and not to go to because of fentanyl exposure. I was working security at Music City, San Francisco at nighttime because there was people that would come by and do drugs and overdose in the alleyway. Um, and that there, dude, it's if you're not accustomed to those kind of things, then most people, oh my God, I don't know what to.
Mhm.
Eh, And that's where I realized, like, hey man, the exposure to those things that I had at a young age really influenced a lot of the route and the normalization of things it's not it's not right. It's not, and it's really up to us because a lot of the system, yes, it's very flawed, but I've found just with my wife, like saying, "Hey, man, you need to calm down, man. You being while you have valid points, you need to put that shit in paper." I'm like, okay, but I've actually seen her get those responses like from these people because when you do push paper, that shit does it has to land on it has to land on somebody's desk, and I don't care if it ends up in the trash can because somebody's got to take the trash out. Um, the thing is,
Going somewhere.
if enough people get that trash can filled up with the same damn grievance and the same dude, how many people are sitting there with their kids and are making these frustrations and taking these this attention on, yeah, Roblox is horrible. Any gateway that's allowing a platform for a kid to be abused in any kind of
Bro.
way, not good. So very much against that. But are you on a PTA meeting? Are you showing up at the kid's school? Are you allowed to?
Are you being an engaged parent, right?
Are you in a clear thought process to even interact? Because there's parents that lack that. So at that point, that's where I find a lot of I've encountered parents, teachers that are also parents, that are aware of these situations in certain households. If a child is showing up with different men every day, clearly not this little girl's father. You know, if I see more than five different dudes in a week that look kind of like me, but in a worse shape, you know what I mean, carrying this little girl to school and she ain't looking very happy to go and do anything, then
Red flag, man.
I have to wonder why would a system that's built on this being a safe place and a trusting place, you can't force a child to share with you anymore, but you can definitely perpetuate a ball of some kind of reinforcement of support. You know what I mean? A parent being there is totally different than a parent being present. You know, um, God Almighty, dude, attention to detail. You know what I'm saying? I learned that shit in the tattoo shop.
Bro, it's so true, man. It's so true because it's the small things that count because the small things lead up to the big things. And I think that's another a part of it, right? Like, when we grow up as parents, like being able to, just maybe give more of that to our
Hmm.
kids, right?
Yeah,
And
because I'm still
that
having.
mindset that you were talking about, because a lot of issues for a lot of people, when it comes from that mental standpoint, really transcends from, whatever their upbringing was, like kind of what you were talking about as far as what became normalization,
Oh yeah, dude.
right? Like, I mean,
Ugh.
it's conditioning, and directly or indirectly, one way or the other, you're just getting to think,
You
and
have to adapt to it, man. You have to adapt because there was no cell phone for me to sit in the floor with, like my son had for his escape from the stuff that was in similar resemblance. So I'm gonna tell you this: you've heard of Septic, right?
oh yeah.
Okay, so that song that you listened to, I'm sorry for the rough quality at the beginning, but that was one of those things that happened spur of the moment, and it was like it had been weighing on my chest like a ton of bricks, dude. That song was originally called Septic. I turned septic when I was younger. My um, mom and dad didn't do the potty training thing and explain it to me. So
Mhm.
I felt pain. I would cross my legs. Ultimately, I'd have accidents and I would hide it. I would get beat for this. Now, mind you, my dad also found entertainment with busting my legs open with like his guitar strap, like from the bathtub. And then, he would do this thing. Like my mom was working at McDonald's at the time and she would get off late. Dude, I would ride in the junked out, trashy floorboard of his Camaro to go and get her. No, even with there's seats there, but nah, it's just junked and ragged out. I'm sitting on top of old moldy ass burgers and nuggets and shit, and you know, that's normal to me. You know what I'm
Yeah.
saying? And um, I'm I remember getting pulled out from school like during this time and I was getting picked on and bullied and shit because I was the only kid taking pull-ups and wipes and stuff to school, so I was getting bullied for that. I'd have accidents and then I would have to go to Baptist Hospital where during this time, this is not an exaggeration because I had to revisit these things because at a young age you can kind of blow things up, but in the
Mhm.
90s during this time they didn't allow my mother to go into that procedure room, so when they gave me the suppositories as enemas, they explained that this was a medical procedure. However, it was scary. When they were sent with those prescriptions home, what that medical procedure was turned into was now a punishment. So that's what my dad would, man, I'm talking about. Like, even if I wouldn't really even need them like that, dude, I mean, it became a spectacle where I slept on the floor. Look, I would watch the flames underneath this old heater.
Mhm.
And this was in a house that my mom and them paid like $75 a month for. So it was just junk. And I wouldn't even sleep on the bed because I remember that my grandmother, my grandpa, all these people had to be there to administer this the suppository to get me to be right.
Yep.
So, lashing and doing all this stuff, it was just like one of those traumatic. I'm not trying to mess with it. I'm watching my dad like kill my hamsters in front of me, like because I'm like not
Yeah,
getting it
because you don't
right.
want anything to do with this.
I'm like, what in the hell is happening
Man,
here?
talk about more trauma.
Yeah. So like the people that I'm expecting, to have trust in to provide that stuff, I'm like, whoa, this ain't right, I don't get that from my grandpa, Uh, so that was just like one of those like flip flop. I don't understand. I was, doing the same thing that my son's doing, like, am I in trouble for something? Am I doing something
Mhm.
wrong? Is everything like because
Yeah,
causing
because you gotta build
stress?
that trust both ways. You don't know what's what at that point
Yeah.
in the
And
relationship. Like, because
yeah.
again, just from past conditioning of what you experienced, just gonna
Yeah.
put you in a mind frame of this is what well this is again what you like you were saying, this is what's normal to me. So
Yeah.
this is just what I'm expecting next. Now I just gotta either kind of brace for it
Yeah. I just got
or
to get by this. I just got to get by this. And then guess what happens? My brother. my brother comes in. So now the last thing that anyone needs to take attention off of a child that clearly needs to have that attention or that care or some kind of something um, is now getting further behind and lost, and kind of seeing this cycle here to where I'm like, I don't, why is he going to a Christian academy in a nice place and I'm at the not nice place, not good.
Hmm.
Um, don't the field trips, if they wasn't free, I wasn't going. You know what I'm saying? I was doing enrichment camp. It's the only one there. There was not no camp. It was just empty ass classroom with Miss Barber doing little hand things for the flagpole. All of them have my name around
Yeah.
it. You know, you know. But it's crazy to see how that developed because later on when I went through adolescence and developed the rebellion state and figuring trying to find myself and all that, um, I was a skateboarder, so I would end up out of town and going to Burlington, and we'd end up at like every place that I've seen that I was drawn to. I don't know why, but they have like a rundown mall, and it's usually just a hallway that skaters or dicks in,
Yeah.
Yeah, it had an old concession stand and a JC Penney one point, but this
Oh, so you
was
just got a perfect setting right there, especially with that type of floor right there.
I
Come
know,
on now.
I know.
Yeah,
Yeah, so
wide, nice and flat.
yeah, yeah. So you could like power slide through these places, but um I actually was really good friends with the old security guard that was there. He allowed us to skate out back off the loading ramp. It was pretty sweet. So I'm like, hell yeah. They had a
Nice little
kink.
connection to have.
Yeah, they had a kink back there with like a four set. So we got there and skate. And the dude was super cool. He was like, but look, at 11 o'clock, you guys gotta, bounce, go over to Sonic. We can go over there. Well, there was a guy that was training and didn't last long, but I was SA'd there and walked home with a ripped one. And I'm talking like 8 miles from Burlington to Reidsville
Mm,
with a ripped one and let my mom know. My dad calls me a bag with a drop to be, and he's like, out. So I get called these names. I'm dealing with this, and I'm like, holy shit, what am I supposed to? So I'm like, do I go to police or what do I do here? And I'm like, 13. No, it's just I was not even 13 yet. I was about to be though, but I knew there was a lot of here that was like, man, my mom's not really taking up for me. At that point, so
sure you're feeling like all alone. Like,
yeah,
'cause
yeah, yeah.
now you gotta like create your own, like you were saying earlier, like, we as children, think of our parents as the ones that we should be trusting to provide the basic human needs. Yet at such a young age, which I can appreciate too with my upbringing, is you got to create your own like safe space. You got to hide from the trauma, right? Because it's so, at least at that point in time,
You gotta have
you
new
know how to,
parents.
in a healthy way, deal with that shit, bro. Like,
Nah. So I became a do boy. So, I would find myself and I was scared. I was like, man, am I gonna be gay? You know what I'm saying? Am I gonna be so I found myself perpetuating, relationships at a younger age, over sexualized because like I said, at 4 or 5 years old I discovered porn. At the
hmm
So there was also now this introduction there and there was no regulation or explanation. So I just had this draw to obscure materials at a young age of adult level, and
this is what you do.
so I was like, I don't really care. I'm just thinking about, I don't want to be that. I don't, this is not socially acceptable at this point in my eyes. So I'm perpetuated to be like, oh man, this is fuck, man, I can't take even more now. So when I'm sitting here thinking about it, I'm like, all right, my parents weren't there and I'm gonna try to find it. So if I try to find what I would want, like, my dad to be cool, hang out, provide safety, and not beat the shit out of me, or at this point, that's what I'm used to. So if I find myself in that position, it's not unnormal to me. So that's how I became the whole do boy for any and anybody that, yeah. So in fact, like when I got my first pack, yeah, just bring me $60 back. I literally sold the whole thing for $60. I made no money for myself. And then he was like, "No, look, man, look, player, look, man, look, bro. God. He had to literally break it. You know, he was like, "Look, man, this is what you do. You can break it down like this." And I was like, "Oh." He's like, "Yeah, man, what the fuck?" You know, I was like, "All right, man. I knew. I'm sorry." He was like, "Yeah, I can tell." You know, so when I start thinking about this, I'm like, I was a knucklehead, dude. I didn't want chains and stuff. I was already pulling tobacco and working hog farms and shit, cutting like pigtails and working in soybeans and getting my bootstrings caught in augers and having to roll around to keep
Mm,
my ankle from getting broke. You know what I'm saying? Like,
yep.
you know, I was trying to figure out how to do these things to take care of myself, dog, because
Who else was going to?
I was like, you know, Ronald McDonald didn't save me. I ended up having to leave it and live at the high school underneath the bleachers because it was within walking vicinity of the Y. And the Y is important in this because I could run to the pool shower and be out of there. And dude, I had like two or three pairs of clothes. That's literally it. I would stay under the bleachers. Why? Because after the football games, if it was home, I could have something there. I would literally go through dark soda cups and put the darks with the darks, and I'd have almost a full soda. I would get chili cheese fried remnants and shit, bag chips. Dude, hang out till 1:30, 2 o'clock, smoke or whatever because I didn't know how to roll. You know what I mean? I was just hanging out and didn't want anybody to know I was like this homeless kid staying at a playground or at a playhouse, the one of the play pits at McDonald's. You know, almost caught it on fire. You know what I'm saying? I'm like, yeah. So yeah, that was 12 years old. I'm trying to smoke crack out of a Seagram's gin bottle. Yeah, yeah, with two matches and like this like cashmere corduroy jacket thing. It was not a good idea, you know. But that was I shouldn't be doing that shit at 13 years old. You know what I'm saying? Like it's
You're right, but again, you really didn't know any better, bro,
yeah.
because that was what you knew.
The thing is, I knew better. You know what I'm saying? It's like I do know better, and I did, but the choice in bypassing it, I'm not able to reflect on that at that point. You know what I'm saying? The circumstance of where I
But
was
yeah, you
at.
can't process how you even supposed to
Yeah,
reflect.
yeah. So that's where right now I can reflect at that and take it for where I'm, where I'm at in my journey and where it's continuing. During that time, obviously, no, I just wanted to be warm, and realistically, I smoked crack all of like two times at that point. Once was by accident. So I was like, well, what the fuck's the power? What's the fuss about? And then I was like, man, I'm warm now, and I can't help but be warm. And I'm watching. I just set something on fire. Now I'm like, oh God, I'm paranoid. I'm like, you should be because what you just did. So good job, I learned all the wrong ways, man. And by the time I like met back up on trying to get something solid with my parents, it was when I was being taken out of school. And, at this point there was suicide attempts. Um, there was an infatuation with death. There was like this just closeness to it. It didn't matter. Rotten.com was out. Um, my dad scrolling on that, if he was on that shit, then I was obviously gonna be like, whoa, whoa,
Or what's going on?
what
Yeah.
is that? Oh my God. Why would you, oh no, and I can't explain, why a lot of that stuff does draw a lot of the attention, but it's just the realness that stuff does exist. You got to be aware, and that's what I've man, that's been my word all this week. I'm going through toddler age and puberty at the same time, and the middle child is my daughter, dude. So, and yeah, and I've got
A
one.
handful.
Yeah,
That's a
and
handful right there,
yeah,
bro.
I'm still tracking my oldest down, bro. That's been a 12-year search. 12 years, dude. I'm talking about this has been my life's work, bro. So I shit you not, man. When I tell you, like, hey, man, this is like there were lives um that were not asked to exist that are that they're suffering consequence, abuse, neglect, and lack of voice in the matter. You know what I'm saying? So,
Yep.
um, dude, that whole journey took me to substance abuse and being pimped out. You know what I'm saying? Literally. You know what I mean? I didn't even know I could dance until I ended up on a box with a stripper pole with hardly any lights and hardly any teeth. You know what I'm saying? Real shit. And that was how I got the teeth in my mouth, man. It was like I I was this low already. So it was like, well, if I do this, it was like, yeah, man, you got a body, you got tattoos. You know, I'm like, oh, okay, here I am at this place that I would have never thought. I'm in a South Park episode, you know, and ultimately the guy that groomed me, like, and that was not a term that was used.
Hmm.
It was just a guy. They were predators, actually. You know what I'm saying? Because
Best word
if you
to use.
if you're 13, 14, 15, 16, and there's a guy that poses as a photographer that is getting you wasted on jello shots at a club that you're not even supposed to be in, um, you know, and takes advantage of you after drugging you with, you know, a girl there that also perpetuated some trauma. You know what I'm saying? You got to think, what is this person who is also involved with it? This a domino effect and this ripple effect that gets like there, and then also provided like a wall of guilt and a wall of like shame and like embarrassment. I just had the 40-year-old guy pretty much just rape me there, you know. However we gotta, you know,
Yeah.
but you know, and that's nuts that I also got used to that because now that there's attention that's drawn to me that I wasn't used to, I'm now seeing that dude, Craigslist was not for buying cars and trucks when I was introduced to Craigslist. I was introduced to more than just a little bit of like surgeons. I'm talking about political people that were like of high stature. You know what I'm saying? Like unbeknownst to necessarily me, but while there's one guy collecting money and then I'm inside doing these massage things
Hmm.
or these favors, you know, I'm like, oh man, dude, what is? No, you don't have to lose your underwear. You can keep those. And I'm like, all right. And then the McFeely stuff, and then I'm like, all right, I'm making $200, and under the age of 17, I'm like, oh hell yeah, I can go get Cisco from Mr. Lee's grocery, you know, and then get pretty much like isolated and boxed off of anybody that actually knew me, relatives, friends, um, and not really realize because I'm caught up in this lifestyle of like, oh, hey, let's go party, let's go party. Dude, I'm doing ketamine. I don't even know what that is at the time. I'm like, what? Why does it feel like a panic attack? They're like, no, man, that's it kicking in. I'm like, oh, God, no, man. I
Yeah,
don't
we
like
have
it.
no clue, like
Oh,
something
yeah,
new to you where, like you said, usually at that age, kids our age are out there maybe doing some drinking and drinking
yeah.
on or some
Or some
maybe
shrooms,
weed
man.
or something.
Yeah,
Yeah.
definitely smoking weed with Walmart receipts. You know what I'm saying? Like, and it didn't work good, but you know, um, and at that point we were peeling it apart. You know, it wasn't
Yeah.
like, you know, I have a mechanic, you know, I have a medical card and I'm bored now. You know, I have to decide like, all right, do I need or is that a is that just a feeling? You know, so learn to not indulge so much and just kind of, you know, but those instances in my life, dude, they led me being stuck there in Winston-Salem. And that's why when I made that post earlier about that killer thing, man, I got I got drug into this ring of people from actually one person set it off from Daymark Recovery Center. You know how that can be when you're early into going to these places, a network of everything that you don't need. And
Hmm.
yeah, and especially if it's a guy that's like heavy on everything that is opposite. If where he lives at, everyone's Christian, he's Satanist. All right, so even to the point when like 9/11 happened, he was having like he went ice, you know, all this stuff, dude. It was crazy. He went Taliban, all this extra. Yeah, you know, just a white kid in the server. His name's John. You know, realistically, his name was John, but most people they knew him as Pazuzu, man, and it turned out, man, that
Human
even
psyche is crazy. It's something different.
dog. I actually was there in that house, and his mom was scared of him. Like she's like been choked out by him. There was like records of domestic violence, and there was never anything done. I'm talking about there was a homie, and I'm sure I can disclose his name, but there's a homie that he turned it in. You know what I'm saying? He's like, I can't fucking, he's doing music. He's a young guy, and we're all like, we did it. I was introduced to heroin through there, um, and actually mescaline, and it was Molly at the time, Molly caps, and I was, um, involved with a couple of guys that were with some green, and it was just like a party spot, man, and obviously this lifestyle had a lot of people that needed to cater to that lifestyle. So with clients in and out, any regular dope boy would have found this a honey hole. You know what I'm saying? You could literally not be involved with all the activities you don't want to be involved
Everything's
with,
not right.
and yeah, and they could sit on the porch and they could drink and get like a good mix. Man, they get good mixed drinks and shit.
Anything
I'm
you
like,
need
yeah,
is pretty much going to be
yeah,
right there for you. Just like
yeah.
you said, you're at the spot at this point.
So then I'm also seeing this. I'm like, damn, that's how I was supposed to do in school. So then I'm getting both sides of this. Like, hey man, why you over here and shit? I'm like, I don't know, man. Really, to be honest with you, because everyone was older than me. You're like, what the hell is this guy? I'm like, but because I was around
Understand, yeah.
tattoo artists when I was younger. I already had tattoos and stuff, and I just I already had my kit. I just stayed. I don't know, man. I don't want to sound arrogant in this sense, but I had this cool kid thing. Just I didn't care what was going on. You could do your thing. Don't bother me. It's
I'm
all
just here
good.
to be here. Like I ain't
Yeah.
bothering nobody.
Nah, and in fact, if I wasn't doing a tattoo, I was probably graffitiing on that in the basement. But um, when I was there at Nob Hill House in Clemens, which is not far from Winston-Salem, dude, I got involved with that guy, and being there, just he talked about like killing like sex workers and just stuff, man. And it come to find out that even though it was reported and they searched that house, nothing, they didn't find the bodies for 5 years in the back of the house. And dude, I was like, oh my God, that was like one of those like epiphany moments where I was like, I was in the basement with that dude. This
Yeah.
guy sharpened his teeth and he was like eating people, man. I'm like,
Isn't it crazy when you start to like hear things like after the fact, especially crazy shit like that, man, where
yeah,
like, yeah, or like
yeah.
that could have been like literally life changing or life
Uh,
taking.
well, it was life changing for me because when I recognized that I was getting scores from this guy and I was around there, dude. When I seen my posters. You ever heard of a band called Lizzie Borden?
Yeah.
Or not the serial killer, but the band.
Yeah.
All right. How many people do you know that even know that band first off, but would even have a poster? Okay.
Extremely few.
Man, I got cold chills, bro, when they played the police footage of going in Pazuzu's house. When they went in John Lawson's house, I seen my Lizzie Borden deal with the devil poster next to a Baphomet, like one of the epitaph, like prints that I had that he swore he didn't take. But at that, for a hot topic Satanist, somebody who's getting a kick now off of feeding his ego with a young girl fresh out of high school who's willing to do anything for him because now she's exposed to this darkness. Um, it was crazy. Like even his mom like believed that he couldn't like he was going to kill himself if he didn't do rituals on animals and drink blood from them, man. And I was like, this is fucking what in the hell? No, dog, this is crazy. This is crazy as hell.
Whether you
This is
believe that shit or not, man, you got to get that
it
looked at.
happens. Yes, and when it's I'm like the police have this. Now there's why in the hell else would you have to seal search warrant files, man? You don't have to come on now, especially after the case is done and all this stuff. You already know how these things go. There's not even having to be a speculation. That's things that the young man who was taken, who was a father, a young guy who actually was around from time to time, especially with music. You know what I'm saying? A lot of us that was influenced with music, that's all we wanted to do, just go make music. It didn't matter if we ended up at a basement, and a lot of times it didn't matter if you ended up at a basement of a guy who looked like that. You know what I'm saying?
Hmm.
Um, because some of us at a young age also aren't taught the difference between theatrics and reality. And unfortunately, so much bad happens that's real, dude.
Yeah.
You have to explain that because like when I got with when I got Bishop, he was it's it's just slashing, it's hurting. He was drawing X's on the animals' eyes and stuff. Um, just really aggressive in his interaction with people. Is it's just there's no social cue there. It's just it's very like just he's got an attachment disorder, man. So it's been very just pass off, and that breaks my heart because I pulled up for years. I'm talking about like driving years, like to get there to these points in where he lived, where I'm from, and hope to catch a glimpse of him. You know what I'm saying? Same thing with my oldest. You know what I'm saying? So if you're out there watching, man, I
That's
hope
gotta be such a challenge, bro. And like
dude.
everything that you've ever dealt with, how is there even comparison, like chasing that feeling, so to speak, or hoping for that glimpse, even versus anything that anything else that you've dealt with?
Nah, I can say 1,000%, man. I was in the military, and I've been doing music and ended up in spots that I would have never dreamed of. I've done shows with Wu Tang members and got features with like awesome people, and I'm like those things that I started chasing at a young age during my you know dissolution of my reality like, at the time, I guess. Um, I think that really just kind of thing it put it in perspective of how many people can go to prison and how many people can die and how many people can get kicked in the teeth or lose them. You know what I'm saying? And still be here. It's like it's on my face. I'm still here. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So it's um, whether I was brung back and asked to be or not. My lack of self worth is totally like went up because achieving that, man, he's unaware. He was unaware of this stuff, and letting him know. Like I talked to his grandmother today. You know what I'm saying? This is my son's mom, like my son's mom's mom. So for
Okay.
some, yeah, so somebody to tell me literally, I'm glad that you saved him. Um, Dude, I like, because I was expecting, man, just somebody like to show up and fight for you. Let you try to come and take my son away from me. I'm going to court. I don't care how many drugs I'm on. I gotta go. I gotta
Hmm.
go. You know what I'm saying? At least let's get let's verify some
At least
factual
gonna
stuff.
be there. Yep.
But if I show up in there with what I am and in front of a judge who actually he's a newer judge, but he's not new to the law. This man is actually he's had me and watched me in cuffs in court on a gun charge. You know what I'm saying? So when
Very
you're
familiar with.
sitting there, yeah, I have when there's a packet there that literally spoke for itself. You know what I'm saying? Like I
What they call it,
literally,
a rap sheet.
yeah. So I literally had. I mean, if you're getting arrested around the same places where there's people that are being arrested at the same time, same place, same address, with concealing a homicide, and my son was there, I, I'm I'm highly disgusted and disappointed in what the way that has affected him, and ultimately the relationship that could have been. Because to those that aren't aware, if you are running from this stuff and are scared of it and don't know how to, just ask. Because if you're sitting there with Chat GPT making fake ass album covers and songs and shit, you can definitely take a little bit of time to figure out what do I do with this here? Something that's going to be here. How about just nobody really cares how many blemishes you got off of your filter because the little one that's standing behind you, not in the filter, watching, um, I don't know, probably Rainbow Friends or some kind of crap. It's like, when do you really decide that what you're speaking on is for the better part of that life right there that's in your hands? You know, you can't be sitting around. You can't be sitting around regardless, bro. Like I am now in a house, man. I'm now in a house. I struggle with chronic homelessness. I was living in a car, bro. I was paying $1,229, and yeah, and 75 cents on one child and child support. Yeah, what? And I have so much in the rears that I'm trying to like,
Yeah, what's up, bro?
but guess what? I'm addressing these things. I asked them to audit my case because they're not they're I have a right to a modification.
Yes, you do.
So that's what I'm saying with these
Knowledge is there, and
systems.
like you said, just like, with the technology or ChatGPT, like, if you're
Do it.
willing to take just a few minutes sometimes and pay the fuck attention and read,
Be aware, dude. Like I told my son too, man. He's 13 too. I'm like, we play very little. We'll play Fortnite, on there with the open chat and stuff on there. So I don't like to be the overprotective dude, but I do like to be like, hey man, I'll involve myself with what you're doing so you don't feel like you gotta go outside some like realm of crazy
yep,
stuff. So we'll play Fortnite and I'll be like, bro, did you not just all right? read, read the screen. Please read the damn screen. I'm like, that means I'm like, dude, you are fire. But let me tell you what, you could be molten. I'm telling you, if you read them, just the little subtleties right there.
and just a little attention to the
Like,
resources right in front of you.
read the perks, bro. Don't just be like, oh man, this gives you more ammunition. I'm like, hey man, how strong is that ammunition? And what does it say? The defect right there totally outweighs the benefit. This is teaching you to read and understand. See, when I was in school, there was reading and understanding, and reading and comprehension. And now the failing point is all the way up to like a 70, which, if you look at the curriculum, the people teaching the curriculum, their attention span is somewhat even shorter because while I like the Class Dojo, I do also still and get, the sense that there is entirely too many like notifications for things that don't necessarily matter.
I would agree that I would definitely
I'm,
agree with that.
while I am glad that they're, being up to date with, fire alarms and smoke detectors. I'm glad that there's some knowledge on that.
But at
But
the
can
same
we
time,
can we address the clothes that these kids are wearing that are covered in methamphetamine residuals that are breaking out kids, or the hand, foot, and mouth disease, which I did a little bit of research, and there's actually a little bit of a connection between the methamphetamine residual and the bacteria that can be held.
interesting.
Yeah.
You see, and it's crazy, man, because we talk about it on some of our shows, especially when it comes to like mental health, or just
Oh
like
man,
health in general. Like,
that deteriorates so much of the psyche.
bro,
I went
it,
through encephalopathy with that shit. That man, it administers the same effects of a stroke, bro. Like my whole left side was paralyzed. Like I had literally somebody else that documented and had to like give notes of what was happening. While I was on my journey with stimulants, there was cocaine, and what I was told to get off of opiates and the heroin was, man, do powder. It'll keep you from going through withdrawal. All right. Well, then now I'm a powder junkie. Then I started going to the ice, but it was short lived because I tried to do it the same way. Nobody explained to me the rules. There's not a pamphlet. So I was taking an 80 bag normally, maybe 5 to 6 times a day of coke, and was slamming it I was injecting it. So I did the same thing with ice with 5 to 6 $80 bags of ice a day. I did it for a week and I got to the point where I turned like Homer Simpson jaundice. The blood vessels in my eyes had started to burst. My blood pressure got so high I couldn't hear. I had to have somebody there to drive me to the van. I couldn't, my fingernails turned black and I went out. They released me with a urinary tract infection. Yeah, after being admitted into like ICU there, and this was at Mission Health in Asheville. Okay, you were a statistic there, and they don't give a shit. You go outside, and if you can make it to Neil Dobbins, then good. But I followed up a party, and it turned out that I had non-alcoholic cirrhotic liver. The liver damage was that fast. It has no way to metabolize in your system, so it did
Mhm.
nothing but like kind of like start shutting my organs down. Put a lot of strain on my liver, which was already infected with, HEPs. So
Yep.
those things happen in circulatory disease. All those things were battling and being obviously addressed with pressures of life on life's terms and the environment that I've always found myself in and kept constantly being, a product of my own hell. Um, it was kind of just never ending, dude. Um,
Well, and you know what's crazy? I heard this term. I was watching something last night. I don't remember what I was watching, but somebody was talking about the universe.
mm,
And they said the best way to describe the universe, because I think the context of the conversation was something about, good people being owed, or versus like how bad people, live these, good lives or long lives or whatever. And at the end of the day, all the universe is what do you call it? Described as pitiless indifference, which, hearing it that way, hit a little different, right? Because the
mhm.
universe just is, right? A lot of what you've been talking about has been choices that we can make, that you have made, throughout your life as well. And I just to hear that the universe is literally just a place of pitiless indifference, because if you really think about it that way, like, I think that's a very debatable term
Oh
to
yeah.
give it. What are your thoughts on that, bro? Because a lot of it is choice, whatever we do or don't do.
Well, 100%. Because the sliding scale, slippery slope thing is like, um, honestly quite apparent and in your face because that's how code is read. I mean, it's a total fluctuation of what does this choice do and how is it going to affect this next thing here? And unfortunately, it's not thought of that way. It's
Mhm.
very impulsive now, especially because of the addictive personality, so many disorders, so many health, so many groups for this and so many groups for that. While I'm an advocate for support systems and support groups, there's so many identities that just want identities that or groups that want identities to not really have a sense of direction for a cause. Sometimes it can be traumatic and overwhelming for somebody seeking that help, that doesn't necessarily have the tools or maybe even have uh yeah, there's so many different people, man. So sometimes just even saying it, they may not even have the ability to say it. There's people, man, that I've literally I can't run into them because they're bed bound,
Yep.
but I've literally came across these people that, man, if I was to even talk about my problems, and I've got some valid problems, I think, but I'm like, you know what? He's over here. That man just painted some cool shit over there with his mouth. You know what I mean? And like, he's selling T-shirts right here. Why in the hell can't you sell? Why can't I sell a T-shirt? I make cool music because I'm not putting it out there. I'm not doing that. I'm not focusing on that. You know, and I have to be real with myself sometimes and be like, hey man, you ain't got to be. You ain't a print press shop. You know what I'm saying? You're doing this to be able to showcase like what's on my mind, what is important to me. I like art. I want to be able to express something there freely as I would, and I want to be able to perpetuate something long after I'm gone, dude.
Bro,
You know,
yes.
you know,
Yes.
because that whole cannibal killer thing, man, could have turned out a wrong way because that dude ended up trying to persuade other people to kill people like that were found for him. So me being a do boy in any kind of like way or direction, I'm not heavily convinced, but I have no doubt in my mind that if I stuck around longer than I needed to, there's no doubt in my mind that it could have been easily associated um, with any number of people outside of just three that ended up with some time for that. Pazuzu ultimately ended up biting through his own wrist and dying in Raleigh, North Carolina. Um, yeah, there was some crazy wild stuff there, man. Forsyth County, just from Reedsville. That's where I'm actually born in, and even the court system there. Susie Sharp was like the first female judge, and her whole family's built on corruption. You know, there was Dr. Fritz Klenner. That was a mass murder from
There's a
he,
lot of that out there, bro. That word
dude.
corruption, man.
Yeah,
No matter
it's
where you
nuts,
go.
dude. Maya Angelou lived across from where that happened. Where yeah, oh, dude, she knew the Newsoms and the Lynches, Bobby Newsom Lynch. She was across they were neighbors, and when Fritz had killed them on that property, she was there and talked about that actually in the book Bitter Blood. It's wild, man. I was around the corner from where the Black Widow, uh, Blanche Taylor Moore, she was played by Elizabeth Montgomery. And for those of you who don't know, it's Bewitched. You know, so there's a lot of history and it's a lot of darkness there. You know, when I was one of the younger guys that came up through a halfway house there, and I hate the term, you know, because it sucks to already, you know, come out of something that's stressful and less welcoming to go into something officially already noticed as halfway a house,
Yeah.
not a home,
So
you know.
the perception of what's given,
Yeah.
at that point is like, what is this even all about, right? Like, is this supposed to make me feel good? Which is challenging in general, right? When you've experienced so many different circumstances throughout, your life, which, whether you want to call it not fair or not, maybe somebody else's normal, right? We talked about it
Hmm.
earlier that, certain things just become what our normal is, and it just kind of is what it is. Unfortunately, darknesses that we encounter that people don't, and hopefully never would have to encounter, right? Because
Yeah.
it's some dark shit, and just kind of coupling that with the choices. um what's it like for you to see where you are now and the choices that you made that put you and set you on a positive path, to be like, damn, I'm just, I'm happy that, just in general, that things are different than that they once were.
Oh, dude, it's good to be. Man, I'm. It's awesome to be like able to have a choice whether I want to go upstairs and walk past the bedroom where my son is right now because I waited for that long to have peace of mind and know where he's at. Like my stomach doesn't feel like it is. How about on my birthday when I get my ultrasound back from my liver? I don't have cirrhotic liver no more, homie. I
that,
don't have it. So as of October 3rd, I don't like
that's a hell of a birthday present right there, bro.
um so the feeling that I get from knowing that the miles that I walked and the amount of people that I hurt along the way, include myself, the opportunities that I missed, the birthdays, the Christmases, Easters, photos, um, you know, all these different things that led up to me wanting to not give up and provide um that safe place and be not a baby daddy. You know what I'm saying? To be a father and be something that means the world. You know what I mean? You can't teach that to anybody. That's something that
True story.
you really gotta. There's not a booklet, and if it is, it's not in PDF format. I promise you. But so
But that's
this,
the truth.
yeah. So that's it's nuts, man. So realistically, man, I've had to really like humble myself and see that the things that I was doing when I was younger, man, I can recognize where the insecurities come in, pre-adulthood and the stressors of new change in the household, new kids, that flux. You know what I'm saying? So try to try to keep cool. You know,
Man, I
try
can
to keep it
appreciate
cool.
that. Definitely want to talk about your art a little bit before we start wrapping things up here in a little bit, because like we talked about during this conversation, between your music, you talked about, drawing earlier, and of course mentioned tattooing. And who knows, maybe there's some other tricks in the bag, in your art bag that you got. But how do you or what's the difference? I guess you could say, or put it this way: what's like the main difference that you get, but also maybe like a similarity that you get from all these different artistic outlets that you
Oh,
have, at your disposal.
oh, because the response is pretty much just I remember them all. It's awesome. It's crazy. Like even when I'm performing, I don't use the stage very much. I don't. I prefer it to be little because it doesn't matter. I'm like right there. I want you to know that I'm actually doing my shit. It's not.
Hmm.
You know what I'm saying? I may have a lower vocal track. I'm getting older with it. I'm being real with it. I'm like, hey man, I've watched these guys go do hardcore open mic for long enough to be like, hey, look, man. I use lower vocals now because I have done this since I was 13, and I'm not cheating. I'm not masking and turning my volume way up to the point where I'm having to battle myself. I stay on
Hmm.
point with my thing. I'm bringing sweat. I'm bringing energy. People are getting knocked down, not on purpose, but people are using camaraderie. I can't say that word very great, but they're showing
Oh, it's a
support.
tough one, even for me
Yeah,
sometimes, bro. It's a
yes,
very tough
yeah.
one.
But they're showing unity. How about that? Even through chaos, and that's where I like to do. I'm like, while I made a post about it, but while my content sometimes doesn't have always just positive features, selling dope was not a positive thing for me. Sleeping in a doorway and being in a cell with that same person later on who was convicted of an infant murder, like those things like stick to me where I'm like, hey, no, this is where I ended up at from doing these things. While it provides a catchy hook that somebody's going to sing here, I'm not letting my like 7-year-old roll around and be like, started with the powder and then I made a rock. I'm not teaching her how to re-rock. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
I keep a cap on my things here. You know what I'm saying? There's stuff that
Well, and I
it,
think you make
it's
a good
appropriate.
point there too, though, bro, because I think it was D1. D1 had said something along
Hmm.
the lines of like he's like it's okay to rap about things like this. He's like it's a difference to like rap about them and tell the stories about them or
Hmm.
what your experiences were that were them. He's like, but then there's a difference when you're actually glorifying them.
Yep.
And I think that's the line, right? Especially when you talk about music and how that influences mental psyche, especially how much is out there these days and it's getting delivered to us in a way that wasn't the MTV days that we grew
No,
up
no,
in,
dude,
right?
no,
Or the
no, no,
radio.
dude.
So I mean, like
No, I remember Kurt Loder. I know MTV News.
things stopped.
Yeah.
You've heard that, bro. Everything stopped. That was some
Tonight
legit
we
shit
lost
going
the
on right there in that moment.
yeah, and I remember like Sway being on there and the little Hobbit looking dude too. But Carson Daly. I remember, but even before that, I remember all you got was like Sabotage and No Sleep Till Brooklyn. Where's the Beef? Miami Vice shit's coming on there.
Yeah, yeah, just like the bro.
I
Those
was
were the
born in
days
I
when
was born
music
in
television was music television.
Yeah, I was born in 1990, so like I remember like the stuff from the 80s that was like, hey, no, you need to still hold on to this shit. This shit's great. I'm like, oh yeah, it
Yep,
is.
because
Yeah, it
then at
is.
night you'd be getting them on, VH1 reruns, like,
Yeah,
after,
yeah,
like,
yeah.
10
VH1
o'clock on the
classics.
East Coast.
Yeah, that's when Weird Al and all that extra stuff would pop on,
Yes.
and that's another thing in my journey too. Like I've gotten to go to these places that were experienced by those people. I got to go do the Whiskey a Go Go, the Viper Room where River Phoenix died.
Yeah.
Um, Ended up at Hyde Street where Tupacalypse was recorded. I sang Nutshell and got like 4 days of review time on it with the editor of Cocaine Bear and John Wick 4. It was nuts, man. It's just like music will take you places, but it can lead you places if you aren't aware of where your journey is, and if you don't have those values to hold you accountable, you could end up in some sketchy spots, man. And that's where a lot of my outreach goes. Like I can't go in Air Forces and wear nice shit when I go do outreach because like I'm hitting places that are like behind Goodwill and
Yep.
behind like Walmarts and stuff. While there is a guy that's flying a sign and stuff, I have to actually take it upon myself to see the bigger picture. That there's somebody dealing with MRSA, somebody's dealing with like shit, man. There's pregnancies that happen, and people do not get help that they need because they are spun. You know what I mean? And you. you don't know how to address situations like that with a woman who is, twacked and has a lifeless person there, trying to care for it. That's like one of those, like, what the? When you start seeing stuff like that, you really start thinking, like, man, the value of my life, I've got to make sure that I keep that up here because I lived recklessly for a long time and I didn't really care. I just, wherever I would fold, you know what I mean?
No, man. Sometimes you just kind of go where the world takes you and the universe does take you because sometimes you don't necessarily have the power to make those right choices, right? Or the ones that you're making ones that you think you're making for the right reasons.
Yeah.
But you're able to learn from them, bro, and that's important, and that's part of your story and your path. And I think that's something that people need to just embrace, right? Because there's been people in your scenario or scenarios where they've not come back from that, bro. In
Yeah.
fact, they've lost their life. They've taken their own life in
Yeah.
some cases, honestly. And you even mentioned it as much, talking about suicide
Yeah.
earlier in this conversation, and I commend you, bro, because it's not easy, bro. It's tough. It's a mental challenge for sure, but kind of like you alluded to, like you have the right mindset, you have the right motivation. On top of it, again, it does come back to choices. Like even if you're at your lowest of lows or what somebody else might perceive you at your lowest of lows, like, well, guess what? You're still here, you're still breathing.
Yeah.
So
Because you're still going to be at that point when, until you make that decision. And if you can't make the decision, get the information. You don't
yeah,
have to make a decision at that point because where you're at right now is probably not going to be as bad if you make a decision with the information.
yeah,
You know what I'm
so
saying?
true, bro.
It's literally right there at your fingertips. You know what I'm saying? You know how many people I see that like, what I'm saying, Gucci Mane shit, two chains and all these guys. Wow, wow, there's stuff that I like. But I've got homies that are like busting tail, man, that are just like that just to have a $50 or $75 to pay a gym fee to take and do bumps in a wrestling ring, and I'm talking about wrestling bumps, not the ones in the bathroom. You know what
Yeah,
I'm saying? And I'm like, I'm watching these guys do this and totally not get any likes, not one, not one. And I'm talking about that's like that fruitcake Christmas. You know what I'm saying? And it's like, oh, thank you. Fine. I'm like, well, why in the hell is Gucci Mane getting 1,000 likes on here from all my homeboys tap dancing around that I've went and man, shit, I might win student loan debt to get a laptop for somebody that learned how to make beats that just won't can't even say my bad. You know what I'm saying?
right.
My bad. They got stink face like. I'm like, bro, I'm like, literally, there's absolutely no excuse at this point because all that stuff that y'all was talking about, I was quiet for years. I'm talking about years, dude. You know how much discipline that takes to not involve yourself with drama pertaining to all this stuff and be evaded and be talked about like, oh, he is this and that, using your past for different things too. Where I had a violent past, you know what I'm saying? And I acknowledge those things, and I was accountable for stuff. Not things that I was proud of losing my temper and being involved with, discharging a firearm to occupied dwelling, go armed to the terror to people, all these different things, assault by strangulation. I'm like, bruh, I've ended up with jobs. I've ended up running halfway houses. I've ended up being accountable for more than a little bit. And you
You
got
said the
to,
magic word, accountable, bro.
yeah,
Because if you can
dude,
be accountable, you could redeem yourself. You got to also tell yourself you're worthy
yeah.
at the end of the day too. Because if you don't allow yourself to be
Yeah,
worthy, it's gonna
because
take
I
to come
can't
back.
I can't look at everybody else that was involved while they played a critical, crucial part and it was negative. I have to look at the duality of this thing. I'm like, how much of this did I perpetuate? Like, how much of my fan base will I have if all that I'm perpetuating is to get rid of yourself or delete somebody that you don't like? It's right there in front of your face. Like, how do you get streams of you get people to like you?
Yep, and then do it authentically because that's how you grow a real following, a real base.
Yeah, yeah. And there's a difference between REAL and REEL. So REEL friends are fake. Yeah, put that in perspective. Real friends are fake.
Man,
Real friends are real. You know what I'm saying? So like, dude, you might need to just when you start saying, "Hey, man, I don't get it, man. I just dropped off 1,000 followers." I'm like, it's because for one, they were weeded out because they did not interact with you. They're not relevant to your story, nor did they care or notice when you drop off. So pay 15.99, please, and we'll
exactly.
make sure that you get into a
Hook and
non-existent
ladder. Hook
algorithm.
and ladder,
Yeah, yeah. So I mean, if you want a hook and ladder, you can go to Firehouse, and they're actually half the price.
bro. And they're pretty good. They're pretty
Yeah,
good. They're
yeah,
not bad. They're not
yeah,
bad.
yeah.
Music. What's been going on recently for you? What are you working on? And let the people
Uh,
outside know where they can find your music, bro.
oh yeah, it is on all platforms except for iTunes. But yeah, actually, I just dropped today Mad World. Um, I like it. It's pretty cool. I got some more stuff coming out. I've actually got a few features in the works. The ones recently that dropped is Still This Song with Chris Calico and Twista. I like that one. I love that thing. It's so cool. And I spoke with
I gotta
UBI.
listen to that one. That one came out very well
Yeah,
done, bro.
I
Very
like
well
it.
done. And with two legends, bro. Three legends
Yeah,
now
yeah.
on
When
that
when
track right
UB
there.
because UBI is gonna hop on there. I have to obviously, but he talked to me about price, and I was very happy with like talking to him when he actually listens to it. You get a response from people. It makes you shine. It makes you glow. So and hopefully hopefully gonna hear something back from X Rated on the music video for Last House on the Left. I got it charted for the new Guitar Hero. Um, and there's some other things too. Oh yeah. Hopefully, I'll be winning a scholarship for the Rock Fantasy Camp to do with Alice Cooper.
Bro.
Yeah, and Rob Halford. So
Bro.
yeah, so if I can get a
Keeping
chance to
you
do that,
in our thoughts
I
on that.
know, man.
Because that would be hella dope, bro.
Goodness. And I actually addressed a formal letter that I'll be sending out to Sir Elton John for a proposal for a request of sponsorship for sobriety. Not for clout because of his involvement with we all know who, but
Yep.
I just seen that if somebody could help that person through a time of much needed structure and stability. I'm at my 1 year mark and some change with no alcohol and even more off of intravenous drugs. I think that reaching out with him in the sense of, I would like to have hopes to one day have an iconic single like Rocket Man. You know what I mean? I want to be able to be identified as somebody that made positivity happen after I was gone, dude. You know?
Bro, what more? That's legacy, bro. That's legacy at its finest, man. I don't think a lot of people get that. And it's a beautiful thing that you do, bro. Like, salute to you because not a lot of people find that in their life, dog. And I'm happy
Oh
for
yeah,
you
man.
for
Man,
that, bro, because that's, bro. I mean, there's not much else to say to that, bro. That's where I
yeah,
want to leave it tonight,
yeah, yeah, yeah. I'm
bro.
with it. Yeah.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, this was a great conversation, and that's exactly where we're gonna leave it. That's where we're leaving it. We appreciate y'all tapping in, bro. Don't go nowhere. I'm gonna end the stream right here for us, and we'll officially say goodbye, ladies and gentlemen. We appreciate y'all being outside with us. The man, the visionary, the creative. I like the way this dude thinks. ATrophy.